Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Today is Thursday, the best day of the week for us. I am Paul,
I'm Brian.
and we are Support and Resistance. So, hey, listen, we're here to bring you fundamental and technical analysis of the crypto market so you can become a crypto insider. Each week, myself, Brian, and Bobby will discuss the latest news and information and talk charts, giving you our thoughts and opinions on whether we support or resist what is being discussed. Now, I'm sure you can already tell we're missing one of us. Yes, Bobby is having technical difficulties and he will not be joining us. But hey, sometimes we will all agree and sometimes we won't. But at the end of the day, we're all friends just having fun so you can be in the know in the world of crypto. So let's get this show on the road. Brian, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not too much. I'm still kind of recuperating from my concert last night. I saw Tool here in Louisville, and they were absolutely incredible. It was a great night. But the reason I'm bringing them up is because one of the songs they have is called Lateralist, which they didn't play last night, which I was kind of upset. But it's all based on the Fibonacci sequence. They actually built the song based on the Fibonacci sequence itself. But the things that they did have at the concert that kind of brought me into the charting zone is they had a lot of geometrical, the geometrical shapes all over the place. So I'm just looking at all these shapes going, yep, this has been my life for I don't know how long. But I'll tell you what, they were great. And I still got to think about charts, which I don't know why, but I was at a concert and I saw geometrical shapes. What are you going to do? But given that, I'm back. And then I woke up this morning and I'm like, because I didn't even look at the markets. I was having a good old time. Got up this morning. I'm like, well, Bitcoin's starting to move. And Paul won the championship, or not championship, but the week championship. So I thought that was kind of cool. So that's what I did. So if I'm slurring my words, it's because I'm tired because I didn't get very much sleep.
That's the way it happens sometimes. So I tell you what, we're going to introduce our guest. Tonight on the show, we have with us Jeremy Epstein. He's the founder of Never Stop Marketing. He's worked in crypto space for over 3 years. Now, during that time, he has served as a marketing advisor and consultant to Zcash, OpenBazaar, ARC, Storage, Dapper Labs, and DAO Stack. Joel Montenegro of Placeholder once said, Jeremy is one of the only guys in the world going all in on blockchain marketing. Prior to diving down the rabbit hole, Jeremy was the VP of marketing at Sprinkler, an enterprise-focused SaaS provider of social media marketing management services. And during his tenure, the company grew from 30 people and a $20 million valuation to over 1,400 people and a valuation of $1.8 billion. Let me tell you what, this is a guy that knows his stuff. So with that, I'm going to let Jeremy sort of fill in the blanks. I might have missed some things in there. Maybe he can fill us in. Jeremy, how's it going?
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, guys. It's a true honor to be here. I mean, Paul, you and I think, met a couple years back. We chatted, and, I have to say, man, I read a lot of newsletters and whatever, but I have no idea how you guys curate such great content like every single day. It literally blows my mind, and it's just a wealth of high value information, and I'm just so grateful. So I feel smarter because of you, all the work you do. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and it's great to be on the show with you guys. No, you covered it. I mean, I've just spent 25 years of my career sort of always focused on this question of how do new disruptive technologies affect the marketing function, which is what I've studied, and sort of markets overall, and how do people react. So I started my career in Tokyo, believe it or not, and then in Manhattan in the .com era. And then after working at Microsoft for a couple of years, sort of went all in on social media before, as you say, going down the rabbit hole of crypto. I bought my first Bitcoins back in 2013, but I had no idea what they were. And at a certain point, I was like, what are these things anyway? And I started reading about it. And then like everybody, you have that sort of like blue pill, red pill moment where you're just like, oh my God, this thing's like a tsunami 50 miles off the coast and nobody knows it's coming. And like, after that, I was like, I think I found my next calling. And so I just looked at the space and I was thinking, wow, the engineering talent here is just mind-blowing, through the roof. It's just amazing. But they're engineers, and they're going to need some help sort of marketing. And one day they'll wake up and recognize that, the best technology doesn't always win. And it's not that they're not smart. It's just they sort of believe in their tech. So I've always been trying to think, like, how can I help bring my experience to, as I say, bring that decentralized future that I think we all sort of envision to the present as quickly as possible and help cross the chasm. So that's just try to where I fit in and try to, add value when I can. Though most days I feel like I'm just, no value add, imposter syndrome, but that's a different issue.
No, that is good. It's one thing you did mention that I think it'd be great for people to know about. You do some trips to Crypto Valley, I think they call it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. So about maybe 2.5 years ago, where Crypto Valley in Switzerland was starting to become a thing, I was like, I'm just going to go and check this place out. I put up a blog post, and one of my blog readers was saying, Jeremy, I think you're missing an opportunity here. A lot of people would want to go with you and explore Crypto Valley. So one thing led to another, and we've done 5 trips. We've taken about 200 people from 40 countries, spent 3 days immersed in Crypto Valley. We like the who's who of Swiss blockchain. And just have a network now. We have an amazing Telegram group of all these people who are just all over the world at various levels. And there's my wife calling, so there you go. Even though I mentioned, hey, I'm on a podcast at 8 o'clock, so that'll be, what can you do? And then, now we've expanded. We did an event in Singapore. We did an event in Rio. We have one coming up in Chicago. So really, it's about exploring crypto hotspots. She's not getting the message here, but we'll figure it out. Probably my kids. Anyway, so we've had that, and we're looking at cryptoexplorers.org. And now I'm never coming back on the show because twice now I've been interrupted by cell phone. So, nice knowing you guys, man.
What's when you say Crypto Valley? What's some of the highlights that happened there? It sounds pretty interesting, and I never even heard of it until right now.
Yeah. So there's a town, or there's a province in Switzerland called Zug, Z-U-G, and it was where they it's where Ethereum Foundation is based, and it was one of the first jurisdictions to really start to embrace crypto technology and have crypto-friendly jurisdiction and laws. And so a lot of organizations based there, especially in the early days, and a lot of ICOs were based there, both for the better or for the worse. But the legal system, the whole ecosystem there was designed to help give these organizations sort of I don't want to say a safe haven, but an environment where they could be based and sort of have a friendly tax environment and a friendly regulatory environment to be able to work with the lawyers and what have you. So Switzerland in that respect was like 2 to 3 years ahead of everybody else. And so a lot of organizations were based there. And it's just a great place to sort of see what that future will look like. Obviously, Switzerland's great in that sense because, they do things by the book, and they take like these things very seriously. So it was a good chance to see how the old world was sort of, meshing with the new world. So just a lot of innovation on that front. And like a lot of organizations, and Tezos was there also. So that had some pros and cons, but they confronted a lot of issues that a lot of other places haven't yet or hadn't at the time. So we wanted to just sort of explore that future and then sort of bring that back to the very, like I said, people from 40 different countries. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds great. When is the next one?
You can sign up. We haven't booked it yet because we're just trying to figure out a couple things with our hosts, and we're also now expanding to other jurisdictions. Like we're looking at South America. Buenos Aires has a place. Like the whole idea is we want to, and the beautiful thing about crypto, as you know, is it is decentralized. It's not all Silicon Valley. So now we want to go see where these emerging hotspots are, whether it's like Malta and Gibraltar, Estonia, Korea is one place that we're looking at as well. But like I said, there's a lot of different activities in different places. So if you go up, sign on the website, we'll let you know as far as when we're going back to Switzerland. But we have a great community, and just always pushing out to sort of explore the frontiers of crypto.
Oh, wow. that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And how long do you guys stay when you do it?
So typically what we'll do is when in Switzerland, we do a 3-day thing. So you get the people usually, show up on the weekend. It kicks off around noon on Monday. We'll do a day and a half in Zug, which is sort of this like beautiful, quaint, idyllic Swiss town. But you get sort of that, a deep immersion. We do the second day in this like 16th century Swiss fortified tower, so you get that sort of experience. And we have a tremendous network now of people who are involved in an ecosystem. And then Wednesday we'll go to Zurich and meet with some people there, like Swisscom Blockchain, which is sort of like Verizon in Switzerland. They have a whole blockchain unit. They host us, and MME is like the premier crypto law firm, so we'll do a happy hour there. And so we had a great experience. And it's Switzerland. It's like you could walk around with like money hanging out of your pocket, and it's totally safe. So and the infrastructure is amazing. So it's just a great experience. And the best part, everyone will tell you, is the opportunity to spend 3 days immersed in crypto with people from all over the world who share your passion. And I tell my family, it's great because it's like the one place I go where people don't tell me to shut up about crypto. My family's like, stop already. We're tired of blockchain. Stop talking about Bitcoin. I'm like,
very nice.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a great chance. And also, I think one of the things that I really enjoy is because crypto is so global and so decentralized, you get to hear about things that you would never expect. Like, would you know that the SEC version in Thailand is arguably the most advanced security and exchange commission on the planet? Like, you would never know that, but there's a guy who's very involved in sort of crypto in Thailand who was on this trip, and he's explaining about what they're doing to allow for that. You're like, okay, that's awesome. And Korea is very advanced in what we call reverse ICOs, traditional companies sort of tokenizing themselves. So you get to see these global hotspots emerging and then start seeing how those trends are going to play out. So it's really kind of, and you have an amazing network that not only from that group, but from all of the groups that have, participated. In fact, next week, as you guys know, is Blockchain Week Consensus in New York. And we have a Crypto Explorers reunion for, the like 15 people or so who are going to be in New York for that. So it'll be awesome.
Sweet. You're going, Paul, aren't you? You going?
Oh yeah, I'll be at Consensus. Absolutely. Yeah. This is my first time at Consensus. I'm super excited. I've already connected with a few folks that I want to try to have meetings with. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think. It's Consensus. It's
a madhouse, man. It's a madhouse, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Well, all right. Well, hey, let's dig into some news articles. And Jeremy, you're more than welcome to sort of give your thoughts on these articles as we talk about them. We'll say whether we support them or resist them. So I think Brian's going to kick us off.
Yeah. One of the first articles, well, it was an article I think out a couple of days ago, actually. And I saw it in the brief one morning. And it was about the Brave browser. And it said Brave browser is gaining a lot of traction, and it may dethrone the Google Chrome. That's the concert from last night coming out right there. One thing I really liked about it is, for one, I'm a Brave fan. I don't know much about the advertising industry at all, but just from a common sense person, the personal advertising, keeping it private, break like my own personal ads, like I can get my attention of what I want. So from a person that really doesn't know the ad industry, I really like it. The browser itself, I think, is great. I'm actually I support the article for sure, because anything that's going to promote something along these lines, I really like. The only downfall that I've always had with Brave or any other internet browser that's trying to become the number one is brand recognition. How do you get somebody that really loves Firefox or really loves Opera and says, I'm going to Brave? That's the only downfall I thought about this. But when I see articles like this that says it's getting ready to dethrone Chrome, I'm like, well, there we go. Maybe they're starting to lose that brand loyalty. I don't know. But that's the article I saw this week that popped out to me personally. So I definitely support it. So if you guys want to chime in on any support and resistance on that, it's a real easy article. It was just something about Brave starting to kick some butt.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Listen, I support what Brave is doing. Again, this show is part of this show is being done on Brave. Google, YouTube doesn't like Brave sometimes, and so it gets wacky. We have to do part of it on Chrome. But the other part in my browser is I use Brave every day. It's fast. I like the fact that it'll show me how much it's blocked. It keeps everything blocked. It's just a really cool browser to use, and I think a lot of people should at least give it a look-see, as I call it, and try it out, because I think they're going to enjoy using that browser. It has the wallet baked into it, so the things you watch, it sort of pays you for. You get tokens in your browser. It's a good deal. I definitely support what they're doing. I support it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna mostly support. I mean, I love the clickbait of overtaking Chrome. That's awesome. I did say Brave is actually a client of Never Stop Marketing. We part of our team goes in and we help enterprise marketers understanding the future of crypto martech, and we've been tracking the growth of this market for the last 2 years when we found like 22 projects and now there are 300. But specifically about Brave, it's my default browser on like 6 devices, and I just got a thing today. I earned like, I don't remember the exact number, but $15. You go to the Never Stop Marketing site and you can tip me, which I'd be happy to take, through the Brave browser, and it blocks ads. It's much faster. I love the fact that it tells you, to your point, Paul, like how many things, and all of a sudden you're like, there's like, you go to CNN or ESPN, which I do a lot, they're like 57 trackers. I mean, it's insane. And you're like, wow, I understand this data surveillance economy. I love Brave. The team there is amazing. They're super solid guys, and not just because they're clients, but just it's a great browser. And it's been that way for, I've had a default now for like 7 or 8 months and across the board. And to your point, every now and then you have to use Chrome for like some wonky kind of YouTube thing or whatever. But for the most part, and every now and then a few sites don't work, but they've made so many improvements. And now they have, extensions, which used to be an issue, like MetaMask and stuff like that, all works. So yeah, I love Brave, and I hope they continue to be successful, because
I mean, Brave pretty much is an old Firefox team, correct?
Yeah, it's actually Brendan Eich, who's the guy who invented JavaScript and built Firefox. He's the CEO of Brave, and I think, just coming back to your point, Brian, of how does the word get spread? That's where I put on my marketer hat, and I say, dude, it's the crypto economics. You start building in the virality of it, and like, I can tip you, or I can tip other sites. Imagine I go to a site and I start tipping you, or I come to, you come to my site and you pay me, and all of a sudden I get a note from Brave that's like, by the way, you have 55 BAT sitting in your account to go claim them. And all of a sudden it starts spreads, or I can start trading. So I think, once they start ramping things up, which they have, and they have like 95, I think, tests in market, another couple hundred in queue with various advertisers. Like, you can run Brave now, get paid to watch ads, and it's so much more like a fluid experience. So I'm hopeful, but I think the answer potentially lies in sort of crypto economics and the virality associated with that to drive sort of low cost acquisition. At least that's my thinking.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure.
And I'll show you all. It should have my screen up there right now. Take a look at that. 55,000 trackers blocked, 642,000 ads blocked, 4,615 HTTPS upgrades, 9.7 hours estimate time saved, and it has links to all my popular sites. It's a beautiful browser. I mean, yeah.
And that was just going to CNN twice last week.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
What people should do, man, is like open the same site in Brave and like Chrome, and you will be blown away by like how fewer ads and how much time you save, and then that triangle up in the top right, that's where you go and tip and what have you. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's an interesting model, and I'm rooting for them.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, we got 3 supports on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Good leadoff hitter there, Brian.
That's right, Brian. Way to go, buddy.
All right. What do you got, Paul?
So for mine, I'm going to put a screen up. You guys will be able to take a look at my screen that I'm going to have up. If it shows, it probably won't. Can you guys see anything there?
No.
No, it doesn't like me. So give me a second. I'm going to.
I just saw a big black square.
Yeah, what happens is, and again, this is the example of what happens when you use Brave and you don't use Chrome for their extra tab. Let me try one more time and see if I can get the article. If not, I'll just tell you guys what it's about. But I think it's going to work this time. There we go.
Yeah, I can see it.
So this is actually an interesting story. I don't think a lot of people have paid attention to it. I don't think a lot of folks was aware of it. One-stop shop for crypto mining and trading to launch spot market May 23rd. Now, I support this article. So I'm sort of in between, actually, support and resist it a little bit because of a recent update. If you see there, on May 7th, they came out with an update and they said that BCause is actually operating under bankruptcy protection. Well, what a lot of people might not know is that BCause is this company. They've been doing mining, but they've decided to now launch a spot market. And so part of the reason why they are in bankruptcy protection is because one of their suppliers, which was a mining equipment supplier, put a freeze on their bank account. Well, when they did that, they couldn't make other payments, supposedly, it appears, and they owed Dominion Power about $1.5 million. And so to protect themselves, they went into a bankruptcy 11. Now, the good thing you need to know about that is that some companies come out of bankruptcy 11 within months. So if this thing gets cleared up, they'll come out of it. But the most exciting part is that they're talking about launching a spot market for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ether, and Litecoin. And they'll be doing that in Illinois, Virginia, Washington, and Texas. And they've applied for a bit license from New York. And they also are registered with FinCEN as a money service business. So if this company comes to market and they're able to, again, do like everybody else is trying to do, like your Fidelities, your E-Trades, your TD Ameritrades, they're going to be able to sell Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash to the public, and then they can write contracts on those futures contracts, and that should satisfy some of their suppliers. So I like it from the fact, and I support it for another on-ramp to get people involved in the crypto. This whole bankruptcy thing has me feeling a little woozy. So I don't know if you got
I'm ditto on that one because I mean the bankruptcy thing. I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer, so I don't know how all that works. But when it's the first sentence in the thing, it kind of throws you off a little bit. But overall, the gist is the Fidelities of the world that are coming out. Competition's coming out. I mean, people are getting pressed, and they're like, "Okay, this is going to happen." So I think everybody and their brother is starting to jump on this, and this is just another company that's wants to take that angle. So I support that for any more on ramps to get the word out and just to get the general public kind of get more educated in what's really going on out there. That's what I support it for. But like you said, I mean, I'm rooting for them because I don't want anybody to fail. But if they're starting off with a bankruptcy proceeding, you never know.
Yeah, it's true. And Jeremy, I don't know if you've heard much about that company. Now, like I said, it probably passed a lot of people's radar. A lot of people didn't realize it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard about this specific company, but I think like just building off what you guys are like, I love the fact that it's just additional evidence of, to your point, more on ramps, more innovation in the space. You know, a faster pace, you know, to your, you know, what Brian was saying about Fidelity and E-Trade, like these are all just signs. And like coming back to your newsletter, like you're highlighting them every day, these little signals that each one doesn't really matter, but in aggregate, you're like, yes, like we see this general trend of more activity, more opportunities. And so whether these guys make it or not, I don't know, but the concept of, you know, doing that, somebody will make it happen. And to your point, Brian, I don't want anyone to fail, but I like the fact that they're taking a whack at it.
Yeah, and the thing is, the one part about his newsletter on the Daily Brief, I love the adoption section. It's one of the first sections I go to. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, and what's nice is I go right there and I get it all. But I mean, that's one of my favorite sections. And of course, the technical section toward the top, I like that section too because that's my world. But the adoption, and I even talk to people at work about it. I'm like, just read the adoption section. Just sign up and read the adoption section. It'll pump you up more than anything.
I agree.
I'm just like, just read it. Just read it.
Ignore the price. Ignore the guys who say it's going to go to 3,000 and the guys who are going to go to 100,000 in the same time frame. Like, ignore those guys. Look at the adoption, and you're right. All these little things of things that are happening. I agree.
Yep.
Good. All right. Well, hey Brian, let's give a shout out to somebody right now. I think it'll be a fun shout out.
Yeah. All right. Let me share my screen. All right. We're going to give a shout out to Niffler. And of course, I brought up my screen because I want everybody to see how well I'm doing. I'm up 62% since start, which is about 3 months. So
nice, buddy. Nice.
They start you off with 100,000 play money. And what's cool about Niffler is it's a great site that you can go out and you can trade for free. They give you 100,000 play money, and you can just, if you have theories or charting that you're doing and you want to test some indicators or just test like even fundamental news, if you just want to trade off the news or anything you want to do, it's a great place to kind of play around with that. But one of the things that just happened this past week is we had a competition, and I'm going to go to the leaderboard here. This is a benefit competition that they threw on here. I think there was 140 people in it, I believe.
Yep.
And then when we go in here, I actually ended up 9th, which is kind of cool. I ended up 16% up for the thing. I was really shooting. 5th place was the prize. I was really trying to get the 5th place, so I at least get a T-shirt or something. but I didn't quite get it. I definitely tried. It was really fun. It was a good time. But as you scroll down here, all of a sudden, hey, number 21. Look at Crypto Curator, 8%. That's awesome.
Nice.
And this is the first time you've played. So for you to jump in here and do that, there's 140 people in here, man. You did really well. That's awesome. And the funny part was
he doesn't even try. That's how good he is. Nice.
The funny part is like all week we were kind of playing with each other, and we were like right on each other too. Like you'd be up 2%, I'd be up 2%. I'd be like, I got to do something. So at the end, I did a big short scalp really quick. And I'm glad it worked because I went from 8% to 16% in a day, and that was perfect. If I wouldn't have happened, I would have lost a ton, and I wouldn't even have been on the list. I would have been way down there. So I took this.
You threw a crypto Hail Mary. It sounds like.
I had to because it was like there was only like a day left, and I said if I'm going to get to number 5, I got to do something. So it worked, but just not enough. Yeah, but it was a good time, and really shout out to Niffler and the team there. Great guys, one of the best crews that I've never met these guys personally yet. I'm hoping to one day, but online presence. They're one of the greatest groups I've actually dealt with out here. They're in the same focus that I am. I work 9 to 5. The crypto world's not my everyday. I do this on the side because I'm in it to grow this new technology and just help grow it in any way I can. And the Niffler guys are in the same boat. They're out there. They want to do whatever they can to help people get into this space. So a definite shout out to them. So
sweet.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think you're going to kick off our questions for Jeremy as well. Talk about the crazy world and market that we're in.
All right. Yeah, my first question has a little bit of color, so let me read it here. This one's about DAO. So Bitcoin represents the first real-world implementation of a decentralized autonomous organization and offers a new paradigm for organizational design. Imagine working for a global business organization whose routine tasks are powered by a software protocol instead of being governed by managers and employees. So on our last show, we kind of talked about the psychology of people overcoming the trust of humans to the trust to computers in that code or just math, and to switch from that fiat to a streaming currency. To me, this is a huge hurdle for the general public. So from your expert marketing perspective and all the experience that you've seen, how do you see this happening, and how do people get persuaded to trust any type of DAO going forward?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. The one thing I will challenge with your question is you don't have to imagine it, because this week I sold a deal to a decentralized autonomous organization.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I am literally getting paid by a smart contract.
Whoa.
That is awesome.
Thank you. I don't know what the 1099 on that looks like just yet. Like the 1099 is going to have like 0xC35. Like I have no idea what that's going to look like. But this is not like 2 years ago when I started thinking. Now remember, I'm an advisor to DAOstack, which I would argue, and I guess I'm biased, is the leading platform for. It's like a WordPress for DAOs, right? So be able to plug and play all these various modules just like you do with WordPress, but allows for the rapid experimentation for different types of organizations. They have digital ones like Gnosis and Polkadot both have set up DAOs using DAOstack. There's a organization, a real physical organization in Prague, Czech Republic, that is now running itself off of this software. So like this is not fantasy land anymore. It's real. There's a guy I met in Berlin. I kid you not. He emigrated from Brazil. Had a hard time dealing with the German sort of, bureaucracy. Was trying to get like a work permit. Started working for basically a blockchain protocol, and now he makes 100% of his income working for a DAO. So like this stuff's not fantasy land. So I think that the answer to your question is probably in there, which is more and more stories of people who are actually doing it already. And the beautiful thing about it is it actually levels the playing field. Because if you think about the traditional environment and how you get jobs, like, You have to work the old boys network kind of thing. Now you have a lot of these like AI screening, which we've seen all the issues with that, which either, filtering people out based on what schools or certain types of names or gender, all these sort of implicit bias.
Like keywords.
Yeah, keywords and also names. Like there's all kinds of things. Like there's evidence like African-American names getting biased out of HR systems just because of the training data that was on it. So like you have a lot of things like that. But what's really interesting in a DAO, you don't have any of that problem. You come in, and I call it like the contributor economy. If you can figure out, if you can demonstrate a way that you're going to contribute value and you make a proposal, then people vote on it, and then you start getting paid, and you can be totally anonymous and your reputation accrues accordingly. I actually have another proposal pending at another one called Decred. So like I'm trying to be one of the first people to have like multiple sales to multiple DAOs, and I'm writing an article about it. So I think the answer is, when people realize, like, I don't need all these traditional credentials, this traditional stuff to get in, and it's really a much more of a meritocracy. Now, it's not perfect because there's still a lot of politics going on, sort of off. There's the off-chain part in addition to the on-chain part. But because of the way that the token economics work, and we all benefit by having a community-owned sort of network that grows, there's much more openness to saying, okay, if you have a proposal and you want to put it forward and you can articulate it, like we'll vote for it and we'll give you a chance. And if you demonstrate value, you'll have the opportunity to sell a bigger deal and a bigger deal and a bigger deal. So I think when people realize, wow, it's true, it's much more about accountability. It's much more transparent. Like everyone knows what I'm getting paid. Literally anyone on the planet can check out what I'm getting paid for this project. Like there's no hidden sort of numbers there. And my reputation accrues, and it's like, okay, this is a guy who's proven his ability to deliver, and it doesn't matter where I went to school or how much money I have or who I know. So I think like as more and more people see this opportunity and they compare it to the existing models, plus they realize the flexibility of being able to work pretty much from anywhere and do whatever they want. Like I would hope that will be part of the marketing of these things. It's like, wow, this is a really cool option. It's sort of like the next level of the gig economy, but where you, as opposed to Uber that went public today and, a few people made a ton of money. In this model, everybody benefits as sort of that crypto decentralized network, whatever grows. So that would be my thoughts on that. I realize that was a lot, but I'll throw it back to you.
When you say a DAO, I mean, there might be some people listening that might not even know what that is. Like when I think of that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I look at it as like, say there's a vending machine.
Yeah.
And us three are putting money into this machine. So we're putting in there, but anyone that puts the money into that machine gets to choose which snacks are in the machine. And then on top of that, the machine will automatically go out and grab the suppliers to fill the machine. So it all works in a I don't know. I'm trying to think of an easy example. Maybe you have one that like is an easy example to explain what a DAO actually is, because some people don't even know what you're talking about.
It's really great that you're forcing me to think about that, because I think I do need to come up with it. I don't have one, but what I love about the concept of decentralized autonomous organization is that everybody understands the rules. Right.
Yeah, there's given rules and everybody knows them. Yeah.
And everybody has to abide by them. And there's no one person or a small group of people necessarily who can sort of change the rules on you. So in that respect, it's like if you come to the door of an organization, like the rules are totally transparent. You know what the game is like, you understand you're playing basketball versus football or whatever it is. And those are the rules. And because it's secured by a blockchain, no one can change them. B, there's clear mechanisms for how collectively you decide you want to change them. And the best part, in my opinion, I call the whole DAO industry like decentralized ERP, like enterprise resource planning, because the back office mechanisms, imagine this, you guys have all worked in traditional organizations. Think about it. If I'm a vendor for you and I do a project, what do? I send you an invoice. You push it over to accounts payable. Someone needs to sign off on it. 30 days later, maybe I get a check or a transfer. There's a whole process. What happens in a DAO? I submit my work. People vote. Yep, Jeremy did it. Bang. 10 seconds later, the smart contract releases the money. No accounts payable, no invoicing, no accounts receivable, none of that stuff. So they're orders of magnitude in terms of cost savings. And plus, you don't have to worry about like all the stuff in terms of like onboarding new people. So I think those are sort of the cost economics, the resiliency, the agility, combined with the fact that it's really open to anybody, and the rules are known. I think those are sort of some of the compelling things. But you're right. Like, you need a strong analogy. The hard part is I'm not sure. Like, it's almost like a co-op kind of mechanism, but secured by the blockchain as opposed to sort of a board.
Yeah. It's cooperation for sure. You're working together. Yeah. No, cool.
I get fired up, guys, about this. Sorry, man. You hit me in the
Hey, no, that's cool. No, I like it. I mean, when I first started getting into this, one of the whole things I liked about this whole space was what got me originally reading about it was Dan Larimer starting BitShares.
Yeah.
And that to me was a DAO. I'm like, that makes sense. So like, I'm like, that's what kind of got me into this. When I started thinking like this kind of realm and the chain of monetary system and all, I mean, we go on forever on that, but it's so be pumped up because it's an awesome topic.
Thank you.
That a lot more people need to be understanding. Because it's gonna hit them in the face one day. I really think that everybody's gonna wake up one day and go, there's somebody probably gonna be working for a DAO and they don't even know it.
Yeah, 100%. I tell people like, it's not like I'm so smart. It's just like, I tell people we're in like the 56K dial-up modem phase of this thing. Like, it's very difficult to imagine, friends on demand over Netflix when you only have a 56K modem. But if you understand sort of the trajectory of how infrastructure and these things get fixed, you're like, oh, that's kind of obvious. And it was obvious to the early innovators. So for us, we're in this crypto thing, and I'm like, guys, I'm just using tech that in 15 years everyone's going to be using. They just don't realize it yet, and that's what. It's not that I'm smart. I'm just like 20 exits ahead of you on the interstate. That's all.
I'm in an energy world, and I'm wearing Power Ledger today.
Nice.
And Power Ledger, I mean, what you do is they have a microgrid of people, say a community of 1,000 people or 1,000 houses, and every house has a node, and they're all based on solar panels. And all of a sudden, all the energy you're getting off the solar panel is going through the nodes and saying, okay, I have excess. I'll just sell it to my neighbor. And if the neighbor has excess, they can sell it to someone else. And it's working automatically. Nobody has to do any buying and selling at all. It's like if you got excess, you sell it. And if someone else needs it, and if you need it, you can buy it off someone else. But you don't have to do it. It works all together. So I don't know if that's completely a DAO.
No, for sure it is. I mean,
yeah, it could be. I don't know, like the whole infrastructure of their company, but that aspect of it runs autonomously. So because I think that's awesome.
It's a community thing, and people are going to be able to vote for how much you want to sell things for and whatever. Like, I need to do this because I have solar panels on my roof, and also I just got hit up yesterday by a top tier analyst who wants to know about people doing crypto and energy stuff. So I need to connect them with the Power Ledger guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love the concept. I mean, they're in Australia. I think they got. I can't remember where they're at. Maybe Estonia, maybe. I don't know. But I know they're definitely in Australia because that's where they started.
So actually, it's funny you mentioned Estonia because the whole idea for crypto explorers that we talked about at the beginning came because like 4 years ago, I heard that Estonia was like the most advanced digital country in the world. So I went to Estonia to explore. In fact, right here, which I could turn my camera, there's an Estonian flag right here in my office. And I have an e-residency card right over here, which I'm happy to pull out also. But like, I'm totally with you, man. Estonia is amazing, but I could go on for like 3 hours.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's WePower, which is another energy company that's in Estonia, and they're doing wind power. So in other words, if you want to build a wind farm, it's going to cost $100 million. Who knows what? And they're finding ways to use the blockchain to basically crowdfund to build wind farms. And I know they're in Estonia. I know that's in Estonia for sure.
I love it. I just saw an article about using blockchain to assign tokens for waters and aquifers in California because of like drought conditions. So same idea. Yeah, it's a scary. It's amazing. Anyway, sorry.
All right, let's go on next question. Let's let me pull it up here. What do you think of Zuckbucks? And do you think he is marketing his move to the crypto kind of the correct way, or because the reason I asked this question is because I feel like Facebook is kind of in the past when it comes to technology. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a little bit more traditional, and he's got to find a way to get ahead of the game. And I don't know. This is just the way I see it. So I was just wondering, what's your thoughts on that? Is he going the right way, or what do you think?
Yeah, great.
No right or wrong here. It's just kind of an opinion question.
There's what do I think about Zuckbucks from a guy who's like crypto first, and then what do I think about Zuckbucks from a marketer? As a guy who's crypto first, I don't like it because it's going to be like a private, it's basically a centrally controlled crypto thing. So I'm a purist. I'm like, that's like subject to all the manipulation that a traditional centralized currency would have. That being said, I think it's brilliant for Facebook to do it because they're getting hammered on the privacy front. They're moving away from the public feed into more groups. They have like 2 bajillion people who are on their network, and it's like, hey, we'll just roll out this currency and you guys will start using it. And like the distribution's already there. So from a business perspective, and for them to evolve, I think it's like, okay, he sees an opportunity to basically say, okay, I'm going to use WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'm basically going to knock out, all the banks and PayPal and Square at once, and I'm just going to use my Facebook currency and basically dethrone the dollar. Like that, I get where he's going with it, and from a business perspective, he's totally spot on. From a crypto perspective, I don't think it helps us because at the end of the day, like he's the guy who can either mint money for himself and create inflation. So I think it's ultimately not going to be great for It'll be great for consumers in terms of simplicity and ease and whatever, but it won't be a great store of value because like it's centralized and manipulatable. But from a business perspective, I think it's really smart.
Yeah, your answer is pretty close to what I was thinking too. So, it's something that he has to do because he is getting hit with privacy and right in the face.
Yeah.
So he's got to do something. So, I'm not a big fan when it comes to just the whole reason for cryptocurrency is decentralization and no, corporate control.
Right.
And I feel like all that is just another form of what we already have. Just it's like a glorified database instead of a blockchain.
For sure.
That's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah, one of the things I've been trying to get people is like stop calling them private blockchains because they're not blockchains. But whatever, I've accepted the fact that I may not win that battle. So
yeah, private blockchain. As soon as they say it, is a database.
Use SQL Server, man. It'll be fine.
And it's not a shock that this is actually happening. What a lot of people don't remember is that David Marcus was with Coinbase and he was on their board. And all of a sudden, you heard the fact that he resigned, and he not only resigned, he said, the reason I'm resigning is because it'd be a conflict of interest. And when I heard that, I knew something was coming down the pipe. And that was well before they even said anything about Facebook launching a stable coin. And now he's hiring all these people from PayPal to come over to Facebook. They're about to upend the system. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
They got the means to do it, so I'm sure they could.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, jumping off of one crazy story to another crazy story, I'm sure you kept up with the Binance stuff, right? So it says Binance loses 7,000 Bitcoins, shut down withdrawals and deposits. So my question to you is, how do you think CZ actually handled that crisis, and what should be done about exchange hacks?
Yeah, so before we jump in, I should acknowledge that all three of us can relate to that emotional pain of losing 7,000 Bitcoin. Like it's been real. I know we've all been there. And it's just it's a sad moment. So we should just recognize.
So sad.
Yeah. I just had a really hard time sleeping. That's all.
I know. It was a rough night, but somehow you bounce back from the 7,000 Bitcoin loss that we've all seen. That happens to everybody. No big. Don't sweat it, man. It's interesting. I mean, like at a high level, it sort of validates what we all know, which is if you don't own your keys, if you don't have your keys, you don't own the Bitcoin. Like, so trusting centralized exchanges, like you have to recognize there is, and we constantly get reminded of this. Every single one of these centralized repositories, it's not a matter of if they will get hacked, it's when. And so like you have to this just reminds us the highest level, number one. Number two is, this whole controversy about like reorging the blockchain and whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, he's saying like, I give him credit for saying, we're going to pay for this out of our, self-insurance fund, which, smart. Like, I'm glad he put money away for a raining day. It looks like at first he wasn't the one suggesting the reorg, and someone else was, but he sort of commented on it, which actually then the Twitter sphere sort of said, oh, well, he's advocating for it, which put him in a worse position. So I think like, he started off in the right direction, but then somehow like they got kind of totally off the rails and now they're playing defense. And he's gone from a guy who sort of was like, okay, man, we screwed up. We're going to back this. We're going to backfill it. We're good, to, hey, like, let's reorg the blockchain, which is like, dude, you don't, at this stage of the game, like, I'm like the DAO.
I don't even know how you would do that.
I don't know.
Like, all of a sudden you got to bribe 9,000 or how many miners are out there. I mean, I don't even know how you do it.
You should have just let that one go. I mean, I would say like, the one time was back in the early days of the DAO with the Ethereum hard fork. Like, I initially was against it, but then I thought, you know what? At this stage of the game, like, okay, you get sort of a mulligan. It's still early, fine. But now we're well past that point. Like, if we want to make that jump, like we talked about earlier with like E-Trade and Fidelity, you can't have this nonsense going on anymore. Like, the beautiful thing, Jimmy Song, I think, had to think about this. It's like the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is the rules apply to everybody. If you lose your keys, like, you're out of luck. Like, that's just the rules of the game. And like, dude, you didn't protect the keys. Like, I'm really sorry, but like, that's the rule. And like, there's no do-overs on that. Like, all of a sudden it's like, no, it's actually worth 3 points if you dunk it. No, it's not worth 3 points if you dunk it. It's only worth 3 points if you shoot it from behind the line. Like, that's it. Like, you can't change the rules midway through the game,
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. I like it.
It's a great analogy. But yeah, I think you're spot on with, and I've told a lot of people the exact same thing. CZ initially was doing everything right. That was not even his point. He didn't bring that up. That was in the Ask Me Anything. Someone asked him about that, and he commented on it. He should have just left it alone, like you said. But speaking of that, by the way, if you haven't listened to Anthony Pompliano's, it'll be in the brief tomorrow. It'll probably be the podcast of the day. He was speaking with, and I'm going to completely botch the guy's name. I don't remember what his name was, but he's a marketer for the company begins with a B. But he was talking about how companies should deal with crisis type situations. It's a really good podcast, but it's on marketing. I'm sure you can appreciate it.
I mean, the interesting part with this was he did have money set away for a rainy day, like you said. That would never happen in a traditional bank. Like that to me right there is a big difference in this new world that we're in versus, like just say you're at Bank of America and all of a sudden someone hacked into their system. I mean, the government will end up probably covering it. Bank of America wouldn't be doing it, but they actually took the initiative to save for a rainy day and said, hey, we got you covered on this, which I think is actually kind of cool.
Yep.
It's something a little different that we're not really used to. Like, you're telling me that somebody that was holding my money is going to look out for me? Wait a minute. What is this?
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's a great observation. You're right. I mean, I think he was on a PR, like, super strong point and then fell apart. The one thing I'll say is, like, one of the earliest things I saw in the crypto space is already back in like 2015 or so. It was one of like Shapeshift got hacked. And Eric Voorhees, who I think is one of the great like crypto product guys on the planet, he wrote like one of the longest, most transparent blog posts. I was like, this guy gets it. And it was just a case study in the future of PR. And like, here's where we screwed up. Here's what happened. Here's how it's not going to happen. Like, you would never see that from a traditional bank. And like Binance, like, it seemed like they were headed down that path. And all of a sudden, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's emotional when you lose 7,000 Bitcoin, it is an emotional event, as we all know. Right?
Exactly. It was David Washman. He's the CEO of Washman. It's a PR firm, but he was talking about building your brand in crypto. So it'll be on tomorrow's Crypto Watch, but it was a pretty cool one. My second question actually is about Barry Silbert, and I'm sure you might be aware of his most amazing campaign that he came out with on Drop Gold. And Peter Schiff admits that Bitcoin has some appeal, but it won't replace gold. Do you believe we'll see a day where Bitcoin is the safe haven versus gold? And we're nearing this, what they call a 100-year debt super cycle. Would you think that's going to possibly end? If it did end, would money flow into Bitcoin versus gold, or still both?
Dude, that's like the heaviest question, man. And no pun intended on the gold, but like, I think the campaign is brilliant, and I do think the value proposition for Bitcoin over gold is stronger because of the portability. Like, you talked to, like, it's very difficult for Americans and like G7 countries to really understand like what this means, like, in terms of families. But you imagine people, like, you talk to people from Argentina or Turkey or Zimbabwe or Cyprus or countries where like you don't trust it, and the value to them of being able to take like their families, like, well, like, you're a middle-class man or a woman, you've spent all this time like saving money up for your family, and to have it gone is like traumatic. Like, we can't even imagine that. Like, like Paul and I live in the DC area, which I like to say is ground zero for the Twilight Zone these days. But basically, like all that notwithstanding, like it's still relatively stable. But you talk to people from those countries and they're like, Bitcoin's like a godsend. Like you can put your wealth on a USB drive, fly to another country and basically have it. Are you kidding me? So I think and most people don't have access to gold. Like good luck getting that through the airport. Good luck cutting it up and paying for product. You can't do any of that. So like I struggle because like emotionally, like I want to say, yes, it will totally replace gold. I'm coming slowly to the point where it's like, look, I see both of them having value. And sort of, I think Bitcoin becomes a equal, potentially bigger, but definitely an equal, more accessible, certainly, sort of form of digital gold that is valuable compared to the alternatives, at least alongside traditional. So at a minimum, I say they hit even parity at some point, and potentially, Bitcoin sort of takes the lead. But gold has a pretty strong long-term history as a store of value asset. It's hard to say like, oh, that's going to go away immediately, but I can see like, this other one coming, maybe taking some market share. So I guess I'll hedge my answer a little bit. Is that fair?
Hey.
Yeah. You say you could put it on a thumb drive. If you have a really good memory, you could just put it in your head.
That's true.
And walk across a border,
That's
and
true.
nobody even know you have it.
That's true.
That to me, I think is absolutely
right.
insane.
You could write down a piece of paper and or tattoo it or whatever. I mean, that'd be crazy. Yeah. Multi-sig. You take half of it, and your family gets the other.
Yeah, part. Exactly. You can have it in there. Exactly.
That'll happen for sure. Exactly.
There'll be a movie out with that.
That's right.
Well, I tell you, Bobby's not here, but we're still gonna. Bobby, this is for you. We're gonna ask your questions for you. So, Brian, you want to kick off his question, then I'll
ask it here. He asks, what enhancements are needed in the industry for the masses to unplug from the quote matrix for a decentralized, truth-based system? Is his question.
I'm glad, man. I was hoping to skip that one because now that Bobby was like having internet, I was like, I can't. No, dude. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as you guys know, deep in the crypto space, like there's this internal debate about how much people actually value and care about their privacy, and certainly within the past couple years, the awareness of the trade-off we're all making with this surveillance economy has increased. But I don't know if it's really changed that behavior that much. Now, that being said, I don't think like the crypto alternatives that we use, like they're still really difficult to use. They're really challenging. They're getting better, but they're still really difficult. So I think a couple things. Number one is like the customer experience, the user experience just has to be significantly, at least good, if not like significantly better than the centralized alternative. We definitely need some regulatory clarity because I think that's a curveball that we didn't have sort of in .com or social, that a lot of people who are like, look, I don't want to run. I don't even want to. It's not that people want to break the law. Like they don't even want to get into the gray area. And I think that like that's a legitimate concern for a lot of people who maybe have a slightly lower risk tolerance than like the first wave of people. So I think the combination of the regulatory and just the usability, the speeds certainly have to be addressed, the scalability. I'm super confident about that. And then I think the last part is like we need some sort of like a Brave is like an interesting thing in that respect because it is sort of an alternative model to something that they're familiar with. So, sort of like a killer DApp might be too much, but like that combination of things have to come together. Like I believe fundamentally that will happen. Timing is sort of the big question mark. But will it be sort of enough to drive the awareness to start moving people off and to understand like how much they're sacrificing? I don't know. Like I just gave a presentation a couple weeks ago to an audience at Microsoft. Their customers, not Microsoft, but about artificial intelligence. And I was telling them like, now there are facial recognition cameras on on lampposts or whatever, sidewalks in China, where if you jaywalk, it can recognize 3 billion faces a second. And if it identifies you, it emails your spouse, your boss, the local police precinct, and it also puts out like a thing on Sina Weibo, which is like China's Twitter. And oh, by the way, it dings your social credit score, which last year, 12 million people were denied rides on airplanes and trains in China because their social credit score was too low. So like, that's like a picture of where we could go if you don't, and I don't think most people really understand yet, and I don't understand it, and I think about this all the time, like what that trade-off is going to be. And it's sort of like a climate change type sense of urgency on the data side. And I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a magic wand for this one, my friend, but like, I just, that's why I push so hard. Cause like, it's more fun to be like, everything's falling apart, but at a certain point, it's like, dude, just look at China. Like, do you want to live in that environment? And the answer is for many of us, like, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I think we are. I mean, there was an article out there, and it was from Vox, I believe, and it was talking about are we living in a simulation? And part of me starting to think we might be living in a simulation. I mean, it's crazy to even say it. It's about as crazy as Anthony Pompliano's question about aliens. But the reality is that we could be living in a simulation and not realizing it. So
that would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I talked a little bit on one of our shows where I thought that we're flipping to a point where it used to be back in the day, if you can get 15 minutes on the TV, you got your 15 minutes of fame. Well, we're flipping it to where I think it's going to be extremely costly, if not impossible, to get 15 minutes of privacy. Like I think we've completely flipped to that. And when you talk about stuff like that happening in China, that kind of stuff just blows my mind. Do you ever watch Black Mirror?
Yeah,
show on Netflix?
It's that.
I mean, they have a whole episode of that one where you get credits based on how you live your life. 100%. And if you jaywalk, your credits would go down, and she couldn't rent a car because her credits were too low. It's exactly the same thing that's happening.
Totally. I see you and I'll raise you one on that one. There's another app in some city in northern China that I don't remember the name, but they're piloting this app where you get like a notification on your phone if you're within something like 1,000 feet or something like that of anyone who's in debt. Can you imagine? Like in America, like ding, 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 ding. Anybody, right? Actually, this morning I got a text from a friend. She's like, "We can't decide whether we should buy, Google Home or Amazon Alexa. What do you recommend?" Like you guys, I'm the resident tech for like 1,000 people or whatever. And I was like, we have Alexa, but either one's fine. But just know that no matter which one you pick, like you'll be contributing to the surveillance economy either way. Enjoy.
Yeah, I've always wanted to test my Alexa and just get home, and every day as I walk home, I say, I want to buy a Ford truck. I want to buy a Ford truck. It just keeps saying it over and over until see if I get an ad just for me talking in my house.
But there's another thing. Like my daughters, my kids are super technologically advanced, and they just took an AI course. My 11-year-old wrote me a birthday card in JavaScript and has like Crypto Kitty. So like we're pretty hardcore on this stuff. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm kind of like I'm a maniac. But the other night she was showing me this feature about like asking Alexa about news, and then Alexa's making recommendations about like, oh, have you ever heard of like net neutrality? And I'm like, what? And so Alexa starts like, well, here's an article I recommend. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. Every article that Alexa's recommending to help her get educated about net neutrality is totally in line with Amazon's corporate view. And I was like, oh my God. And there's a really interesting initiative, crypto project called Seed Token that is open source crypto conversational UI. Because their argument is, look, if you don't know the algorithm that makes these recommendations over these conversational interfaces, you're totally in a position to be manipulated and you don't even know it. And I saw it, or I heard it with my own ears in my own kitchen. And I was like, oh my God, like people are just going to accept whatever Alexa tells them as the truth. And for all we know, it's like, do this and then buy this. And all of a sudden, like that affects, like, you want to talk about Russian meddling. What about Alexa meddling,
Yeah, no, absolutely crazy. And it's funny because that actually ties into the last question. You sort of already answered it, but his last question was, could the success of digital currencies and blockchains have more drawbacks than benefits? Corporations and governments will look to the technology to track individuals via IoT network. What social benefit do you see blockchain solving, and what potential drawbacks do you foresee in technology? And I think we just went over that most of it.
Yeah, and there was actually an article. I mean, this is a huge area. Like I'm very proud to be an American. Like I'm very grateful to America for, all that it's done for me and my family and everything. And I will stand up and tell everyone that I think America is the greatest force for good in the history of the planet. Like, and I will defend that one. At the same time, like you can see how some of the things that the government's doing is like eroding that right now. And there was a really powerful video this afternoon I saw from Representative Brad Sherman from California, who was like, we need to ban cryptocurrencies because they threaten the dollar. And in some respects, he's right. It does threaten the dollar. But my argument is, dude, if you guys actually manage the budget effectively, like we wouldn't have this problem. So like, yes, that's true. But so I think you're going to see this conflict sort of continue as the old order, banks, governments get challenged. And instead of recognizing that it's a challenge because in some respects, like banks and government are not doing their fundamental job to the citizens. I mean, Brian, you pointed out before, like, oh, the government's going to like backfill the bad bank loan. And like, yes, that's true. But the point of that, I would say, is you're right. We're the government. We're the guys giving them the money. And either we're giving them their taxes or the Fed Reserve is just printing money. Either way, we're paying for it. So like, I think like that's the part that people don't always connect the dots to in terms of what's happening. So look, I mean, I think those maybe are like a little more evangelical sometimes. So maybe I can chill out, you know? Yeah,
he was saying that it threatens the dollar, but if you really think about it, the whole gist of it is it threatens control.
Yeah.
But they won't say that, but that's what it is. Because if they lose the power of the dollar, they lose the power of control.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Like the dollar's like our big mechanism for like enforcing sanctions on Iran. And trust me, like I'm all in favor of sanctions on Iran. I think Iran is evil. But like he basically is like, this is our sort of effort to sort of, maintain control over, other countries, which is great in some respects, but like we're gonna have to think about it. And like he and the government are the ones that are devaluing the dollar right now, and just Bitcoin happened to come at the same time. And like good luck shutting it down, Brad. Like I don't know how you're gonna do it. Like you'll make life miserable for the three of us for sure, but shutting it down is gonna be a challenge. We should get off the air because now they know who has. We're done, man. We're done. It's over, man. I gotta go to
hey, listen, we're sort of done with the questions, but I want to sort of open the floor to you. If there's a topic that you might have had on your mind and been thinking about to sort of share with our viewers, now's the time to do it.
Oh man, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. First of all, I didn't know we were allowed to have this much fun on a podcast. So
exactly.
Thank you guys for giving me. We probably have like no viewers now, but we're having a good time. That's all that matters, right? But I mean, look, I think I would bring it back to the adoption section of the Crypto Curator newsletter. And, no one's paying me to say this, so I will be happy to just kind of acknowledge that, which is, the price is cool. It's fun to watch the price and whatever, but just leave that aside. And I think the fundamentals are look at the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis. Look at, how many developers are hitting GitHub repositories, downloading Solidity, how many wallets are getting created, the amount of transactions, the transaction volume. And the best part about this is you don't even have to believe me. You can go look at the blockchain yourself. You can see what's happening. And I think that's the thing. And we're in this, there's this German philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, it is aside from being like a sexist, racist, and anti-Semite, we'll just leave that part aside. What he talked about is sort of that there are three stages, right? The first stage is where people sort of ridicule you, right? They're like, this is ridiculous. It'll never happen. Fine. The second phase is where they actively fight against you. And then the third phase is where they realize it's inevitable, right? And I think, and that's what happens with change. So we've gone through the ridicule phase. Like for years we had that, oh, it's just for drug money. It's just for the, okay. And now what we're seeing with Brad Sherman, and we saw that a little bit with Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon's already moving into the inevitable phase. Zuckerberg's moving to the inevitable phase. But, the government's a little bit slower. So I think we're in that second phase right now. And so what I would say to people is, look, guys, I don't know what day, like, things are going to switch. Like people, I was a history major, and I guess the part I think about is, with big changes, people want like some sort of like announcement, like, oh, the world's different. Now, the worst example ever I could come up with is like September 11th, right? You knew the world was different September 12th than it was September 10th. It was so obvious. Horrific example. So I'm sorry, but it's like very dramatic. But with technology, it doesn't happen that way. There was no day where all of a sudden we were like, I think we're going to use Twitter as our primary means of communication for the government. But like, the president and the Speaker of the House and government leaders now use Twitter. But like when I first started using Twitter, they were like, this is just a dumb thing. So I think look at those things. That would be number one. I am just really interested in what people are experiencing. What are the friction points that they're seeing? What are the adoption points that are working? Where is the resistance? That's what I'm really interested in. So if anyone hears or sees of anything, like, just hit me up. Neverstopmarketing.com. I'm GER979 on pretty much every social platform on the planet. So those are the things. But I guess I don't know if that really sort of is what you were looking for, guys. But you obviously have a wide audience, and that's the kind of things I'm interested in.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I think Brian is going to go over the charts. We normally do a little prediction deal, and we'll definitely let you jump in the predictions as well. But Brian, if you're going to pop your chart up, let us know what you're seeing support and resistance going into this next week.
All right. Bunch of stuff on this chart. We got a daily chart of Bitcoin here. I actually put a video out this morning. I don't know why, because I was completely tired from the concert, but I decided to do one anyway because it was the market was moving and into an area that could get kind of weird. But what I was talking about this morning was if you look at this bullish trend line here, where we had this breakdown, where we started to go toward the lows of that 3,100 or so. What technicians do is they take the highest point above the trend line and take that distance of where an area of buying would be in this case. Because it all comes down to psychology. Because if you were a buyer on this line, all of a sudden the sellers come in and, it's trench warfare and the sellers take over that line. The buyers have to figure out a way, okay, we have to retreat and jump out of this trench. Where do we build our next trench to create another floor? And a lot of times that distance is where that happens. It was pretty close down here. So if you actually traded this break, this would be the area you'd want to buy back in. Given that, I wanted to flip back to where we're at today. We actually had a trend line break to the upside right when we had this big green candle here. So this distance going the other direction matches up where that other one started, which is right around 6,500. Actually, it's 6,540 to be exact. And if you take this line out into the future, the sellers should be sitting in that trench, because that's a line that they own right now, and they're going to own it unless we get enough buying interest to push through it. So right now, I still think we might be able to get up into this range of 6,500. Right now, we went above. Right at this break point is another area I was looking for possible resistance, which was at 6,095. We actually went above that a little bit. We are in a little bit of a red candle now that we're past 8 o'clock and we got the new daily data coming in, but it's starting to come down a little bit. But I still think we have a little bit of room to come up here toward the 6,500. I think the selling interest will increase the closer we get to that line, to where we should. I put in a little red oval here where I think price should be headed after we kind of test resistance, where we'd work our way back down into. I like the intersection of this previous low of this last leg to the upside and the trend line that we're on, this bullish trend line going forward. That intersection is at like 49.62. So you're right around that 5,000 mark that I think really anywhere between 5,000 and this moving average that I'm really following is right around 5,300. Anywhere between 5,000 and 5,300, I think is where the buyers are building their trench per se. So I still think we get up a little higher, but I still think there's a nice correction that should be had. After that hold at 5,000, I think that's when we really pressure those sellers and we kind of bust to the upside. Not everything that's going to happen next week, but that's a little bit down the line. For next week, support and resistance for next week, this is a tough call, man, because like right now, I'm watching this RSI because the RSI is pushing into overbought conditions, but I won't sell this thing until it drops back down into the it's actually below the 70 mark on the oscillator. So I'm waiting for it to come down into that area before I would actually want to sell it. So I'm going to say support is going to be pretty much 6,000. I'm just going to go with the psychological number for 6,000 because I think that's going to be in a lot of people's heads right now. And then the upside, I don't know if we make it all the way to 6,540, but I really like that 6,350 range. I'm going to have to put a range right now, 6,350 to 6,500, that we should work our way up into that range before we see some really significant selling interest. So 6,000 to 6,350 range that we trade in. I think we test 6,350 before we test 6,000. I know it's starting to come down a little bit, but I think the psychology is we're breaking above this level. As soon as it comes down here, the people that didn't buy it the first time, they're like, oh, I'm going to get my chance. I think we're getting into that fear of missing out type thing. Markets don't work like economics. Right. Everyone thinks supply and demand.
Yep.
Financial markets, demand increases when price increases. It just happens. People buy at the wrong time. It always happens that way. It's fear and greed. Keep making those patterns. It keeps me employed. So as long as fear and greed's out there, I have a job. So, and I don't think that's going to happen because human nature's been around forever. It's going to be really hard to really break that because I think we're wired that way to say, look at my wallet's getting hit. I got to get the hell out versus I'm going to ride this thing because this is awesome. I don't know how without really breaking your innards down. I don't know how you break away from that human nature.
Well, leave your chart up because I'm going to make mine. And again, people know I'm not a TA guy because I don't have any background in technical analysis. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think you're right. I think we're going to keep buying this thing up. I wouldn't be shocked to see us hit that 65, may even jump above that 65. Now, that'll be for the rest of today. Tomorrow's Friday. As it gets into the weekend, things seem to slow down a little bit. We've got two major issues out there that's going to pull us back, and I believe we are going to get that pullback. We've got Binance, which we know is shut down for at least a week. There's no buying or selling, which means this is why we see a 58% dominance rate on Bitcoin. Nobody can buy the alts. No one can sell the alts right now on Binance, which was the largest exchange for that. So that's been shut down. So that's out of the picture. Bitfinex is the other one. Bitfinex, they got some issues. Some news is going to break about them. Right now, someone was saying on Twitter how they can't get money out of Bitfinex right now. Something's going on. I think we're going to see some news break. What's shocking about Bitfinex is that they've already said they've got $1 billion committed for their IEO already spoken for, which is a shocker to me. Why is people giving this company money? Don't get it. So I think there's going to be some bad news that's going to come out with that. Maybe over the weekend, something weird, maybe on Monday or Tuesday. It's going to pull us back from that 6,500 back down, maybe even to that 6,000, maybe below that 6,000 before things settle out. And then I think by the time we're on the show again next week, we'll be somewhere around 63.
Okay, so can I'm going to throw one in also just because I'm here. Is that cool?
Absolutely. We want you to.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is awesome, man. I also don't have a big technical analysis background, so it's really fascinating. I mean, I love the data and what have you, but this is really interesting for me. I tend to just think I'm much more like of a 5-year kind of HODL guy to begin with, so I don't really tend to worry about day to day. And there are a couple things that I look at. So I did go out on a major limb like 5-6 weeks ago on my blog. You can go check it. Where I basically said the crypto winter is over. And since then, I've been doing pretty well. The reason why I said that was a couple sort of external factors. The big one for me was Jack Dorsey from Twitter saying he was buying 10 grand of Bitcoin a week, which I thought would be an indicator towards the other sort of like that next level of tech early adopters was part one, and a few other things. The second thing that this week I saw all the way, we were talking about CNN before, all the way at the bottom right of the CNN homepage yesterday, it was like this little thing that said, "Remember Bitcoin? ? It's back. Should you buy?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." Like it's the first time that we went through this, I actually tracked Bitcoin's awareness by watching where it was placed in the physical edition of the Wall Street Journal. At the very early, it was like on the back of the business section, like B12. And over time, it made it all the way up, jumped over to the A section. And at the height of the mania, there were 3 Bitcoin articles on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. So those are the indicators I look at. So the CNN thing was big. And I'm like, okay, now. And the last thing I'll say, and I could be wishful thinking, but Consensus Blockchain Week, at least if you go back, there's a historic bump. I remember 2 years ago, I think, was when it busted through like the 2,000 or 2,200. It was like the 2,000 barrier. And all of a sudden there was this excitement. So like bringing all these Bitcoin, and last year we had a lot of sort of the pretenders there. So they're not coming back this year. So now like the Bitcoin, the crypto OGs and the crypto like devotees like we are get together and like the belief kicks in. And sort of to your point, Brian, like markets aren't rational. And you're like, you know what? It's like going back, getting in like a little bit of that religious fervor. And you're like, you know what? Yes, I'm in. So I don't know exact numbers. I don't have the genius that you guys have, but next week at this time, at the end of like a week full of consensus, blockchain week, token summit, all this kind of stuff, I'd be surprised if all the things considered, I would expect it would be higher. But again, I'm like a 5-year guy anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
No, that's a great point. And I actually brought that up on a tweet myself. I probably should advise mine and go the opposite. I just said we're going to pull back this weekend, but by the time consensus hit, because I said it would not shock me if there's a major announcement. These companies are holding major announcements for consensus. When they get on stage, they want to make a splash, so they're going to make massive announcements during consensus. So you're right. So
who's the marketer now? Look at you, man. You got this.
This is going to be a fun week. I'm telling you that. I can't wait. We might be at 10,000 by the end of the week.
I got a few people out there that are on the 8,500 train. I think Jacob Canfield's one of them that thinks we're on our way to 8,500.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
So and that's from a technical perspective. You add consensus into that. That's probably an impetus to help that go.
That'd be nice.
There you go.
I don't know what the time frame was on it, but that's what
that kind of bump, like on a personal level, would be huge. But like, I think what we want is just a slow, steady gain. Like we can't have that
absolutely.
2017. Not like that was too much. Like I got sick after that. Like that was not healthy. You know, you just need that slow, incremental. Like, and you just tell your friends, like, guys, it's going, and then all of a sudden, like, wake up one day and it's like back at 20 grand, and it's like 3 years from now or a few years, whatever. Like. I think that's the thing. It's like that, you know, like, again, it's technology. It's the incremental changes. You don't realize it. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, everyone uses Twitter. And before it was a joke, or Facebook. Smartphones, right? When they first came out, I was like, who would ever need one? Now you'd rather like cut off your arm than give up your smartphone. And I think that's what happens with crypto.
Yeah. You say you're on a five-year plan. People think I'm absolutely nuts. I'm on a lifetime plan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like any fiat that comes out of the system for me and goes into crypto, I hope is never coming back. So I don't ever want to bring it back, but that's just me personally.
I'm totally with you, brother. I'm totally with you. I mean, I guess
I could be completely wrong, and I'll meet you in the bread line, but if not, I'll pick you up in a nice car.
No, if not, you're buying dinner. That'll be great.
Exactly.
I think you're right. Look, you're right on I guess for me, I always say like the 5 years.
Just a long-term plan. You're thinking long-term.
Yeah, you're right. But like, if you tell people who aren't in crypto, like it's a lifetime plan, like I don't have that kind of time. But 5 years, like, okay, I can wait 5 years. Like that feels like I'm making a smart investment, you know? So, we'll see. I mean, one of the other things I do is I run a crypto investment fund for accredited investors. So that's sort of our pitch to them is like, look, you don't have to buy into decentralization as a philosophy. Just look at these fundamentals, and it's just like, don't be an idiot and miss it out and put some money in just a hedge, even though eventually it could take over. But I guess you'll be glad you're in it. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's another asset class to put money in.
Correct.
Yeah. By the way, love the shirt, the Crypto Kitty shirt. Yep. Did you hear about? I think it was former Facebook guy who created that new app where you can actually create your own collectible on your phone.
I saw something about that. I actually have a running list of crypto tech to test out. And once a week I go in for like an hour and I just play around with whatever, like buying land on Decentraland. So I took it, I put it on my list, but I do it like Saturday nights is my crypto tech test out time. So that's when I do it.
Nice. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. So there's somebody that, I mean, you have to have an iPhone, but the reality is now if you're a creator of art, whatever, you can create your own collectible and you can assign how many you want to be existent and then launch it and they can buy them.
So when are we going to support and resist NFTs, baby? We're sending those out.
Exactly.
Royal fans want them, dude. They'll pay you for them.
That's right. NFTs, that's the game to play.
It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. You mark my words.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Jeremy, for coming on. This was a blast. We really enjoyed it. Sorry Bobby wasn't here to enjoy with us, but Bobby, hope you get that technology worked out, that internet thing. He's having an internet problem. So, but other than that, Brian, you got anything else?
Not that I can think of. I think we're good. Great show. Jeremy, thanks for coming on. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Good time. Learned a little bit. That's what matters. I learned a little bit. And hopefully other people did too. So.
You guys are great hosts. It was an honor to participate. I hope I didn't ramble on too much, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Perfect. All right.
No problem at
Thanks a
all.
lot, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it.
All right.